Who lives and dies over your eugenics population program.
You're no better than a Nazi.
All right, there you have it. And the British Royal Commission that became the State Department model said if they would have industrialized the third world, they would have less children, 1.3. They did all this on purpose. These people just like to kill folks. The sleeping giant that is free humanity is beginning to awaken. The giant is sitting at the end of the bed with cuts and bites all over from the globalist rats. We must breathe life into the sleeping giant that is humanity and get it up on its feet, get it nourished with the truth and the conviction of survival and building up humanity and move forward against the globalists. The globalists themselves are just puppet minions of a darker force. All my research, everything shows that these are deceived people as well. We are fighting pure wickedness, pure crystallized death. Mike Adams will be taking over fully in about 30 minutes, and he's going to have a lot of great folks on today, like Jim Mars. But we've got Aaron. Aaron, give us your basic breakdown on how important this year's Bilderberg was. I mean, we're talking about this being a victory. It's all over mainstream media. But there's a revolt in the media where the editors can't say no anymore, and people are writing positive articles. And the media is more and more getting sold on the truth, but we see the loyal opposition groups like Beck, Tucker Carlson, and others showing their true colors. Washington Times shows their true colors for patriotism. I'm not saying they're perfect. DrudgeReport.com shows their true colors, blowing it wide open. George Norrie helping do it. But then you really learn who's who now, don't we?
Oh, yeah, and it's a classic best of times, worst of times, like any Dickinson era. We've blown it wide open. The activist community has mobilized. That's growing every year. I mean, it must have been 10 times bigger than it's ever been in terms of number of protesters outside the meeting. No wonder they see us as cockroaches, because they want to quietly move forward on their agenda, make sure it's achieved in silence, always under the name of world government, as they make insider deals, get all the land deals, all the population and money and wealth for themselves. And that's really what these Bilderberg members do. I try to focus on studying the list, and we see this year they're really mobilizing. The architecture is there for World War III. Whether or not they actually want that, we're going to find out.
And warfare against us, announcing, yeah, troops are on the street, yeah, we're watching you, yeah, drones. I mean, it's just a full tyrannical declaration of war against humanity.
Well, you notice Bill Gates has been under a lot of heat and criticism for his covert war against humanity through
his name was always on the list. He was there, photographed and stuff. The Washington Post admitted it as insiders. Off the list, though.
Admitted he was there, but off the list. But those who are on the list, you study them, you look up what they're involved with. It's extremely telling. You'll find their names almost daily in the Wall Street Journal, but never mentioning that they coordinate their efforts at Bilderberg. But in fact, they do decide policy there. We've been given a huge data dump of documents. We'll talk about that later, from back in the 60s when Prince Bernhard was still heading the group. He, of course, had to step down in the 70s because of his own bribery
And his
scandal.
World Wildlife Fund was used as a front to actually hunt elephants and stuff and get gold. I mean, no end to the level of how wicked these people are.
Well, it's not, that's the point with Ted Turner. It's not just that his policies are like Nazis. They're working with actual Nazis. Prince Bernhard, one of them.
Well, Nazis were just a eugenics spinoff.
But it's not even just the eugenics. They're seizing up land. All the Agenda 21 stuff was done under Ted Turner, Maurice
The
Strong.
UN lines people up in Latin America and Africa and shoots them. I mean, this was in the news.
In the name
and
of
the
global
liberals
warming.
are like, murder them. It's good.
In the name of global warming. It's all phony.
You're a racist if you don't want to kill black people.
But as you know, they were in there not only talking about carbon taxes, but the fact that it's Rio plus 20, revisiting Agenda 21 under the United Nations. They've had a lot of major defeats. There's opposition against that. They're looking to move that forward. And you see more and more the Rothschilds, Rockefellers openly working together, whereas there was some infighting, but mostly coordination before. And this all just goes on and on. But it's very troubling to see so many big-time Russian envoys, the head of the Syrian National Council, and all these Chinese delegates here. They really want to move forward on the war
Stay there.
front.
I'm glad we're getting into the agenda. On the other side, I want to break down the vice president that Bilderberg likes, what's going on with all of that and more. I'm Alex Jones. Resistance is victory. You are resistance. You are victory. Realize the threat. Face the enemy. It's the only hope we've got. We're not heroes. We just want to survive.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, sitting in today at the headquarters in Austin, Texas. Alex Jones and Aaron Dykes are joining us via the road, broadcasting from a hotel room. They've been on the highway, on the road version of the Millennium Falcon, the InfoWars bus, and they're breaking down the information from Bilderberg, which, of course, is the biggest story on the planet right now. And yet most of the media absolutely refuse to cover it. The eugenics agenda is real. We just saw an interview with Ted Turner where he confirms that he wants one-child policy across the planet for the next 100 years, reduce the population to, I think, 2 billion people. We're talking mass death across the planet. Alex and Aaron have more information on this front. Go ahead, guys.
And that's what the carbon taxes in their own numbers, what they wanted in Copenhagen 2 years ago, 1 billion dead in the next 10 years. And the New York Times admits the UN in Africa, in Uganda, but also in Latin America and Honduras and other areas, lines up villagers that won't leave from their ancestral land and blows their heads off. And I talked to all the liberal trendies who aren't liberal at all, and they go, well, there are too many people. Listen, idiot. Your food has been jacked. Your water is. You're under attack, too. You people make me sick. And that's what Mike Adams exposes. Now, I want to get into the agenda, what happened at Bilderberg, what we know from the list, what we know from sources, calling us cockroaches, wanting us dead. This is incredible. Aaron Dykes has been barely able to sleep. The deeper he goes down the rabbit hole, learning even more than I know in many areas, constantly researching just how true our analysis is. Aaron Dykes, what are we facing? What do we know from the agenda? We're going to have huge reports when we get back, whole giant reports we're just going to churn out with all the documents we've got. The Brookings Institute, the connections to the Hudson Institute, the connection to the Rand Corporation, their master plan. I mean, these people really are incredible psychopaths. They are unbelievable. I mean, they might as well be a foreign alien force. I just spilt my water all over the electricity. Hold on.
But it's so damning, Alex. I learn more and more as each hour passes by. I just keep reading on the road, even though it makes me slightly ill, because I can't just resist looking up these names and seeing the terrible things they're admittedly involved in. Just last week, we found they're putting herbicide in the water, contaminating it.
Bilderberg Group.
But more importantly, they have...
But I mean, it's all the Bilderberg Group. Once you know their names, you open every newspaper article up, and it's just all them ripping us off, constant bailouts, total criminals, telling us the debt is ours. I mean, these people are filth. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, to recap what's happened in the past several years in the economic crisis, they're admittedly selling us on austerity. It's officially on the Bilderberg agenda on their official website. Meanwhile, they put in all their technocrats, Mario Monti, a top steering committee member of Bilderberg, head of Italy, Papandreou, and the other counterpart in Greece, Peter Sutherland, who has the arrogance to run BP, and
if
Goldman
aliens
Sachs
came
in
to this
Ireland.
planet in fake human bodies, this is what they would do. I'm not saying that this is who they are. That's a figurative thing before Glenn Beck runs with it. But I mean, this is so anti-human, they might as well be from a distant star. I mean, sometimes I think it's like a Thing episode. I mean, it's so systematic, so crafty, so hateful, so evil. And I just look at the photo my wife sent me of my 4-year-old with a basket of peaches she picked, and she's so innocent and so good. And it's beyond hatred I have for these people, Aaron. They are the scum of the earth. They are our enemy. Enemy. Go ahead. Sorry.
I know, Alex. It's so sick what they've done, especially in respect to humanity. But you got to understand, while they're selling us on austerity in Europe, they're setting the scene to make it happen here in America. The pension funds in particular have been bought out by these Bilderberg firms. They're getting
after they were looted already by them.
Correct. And they're leveraged on the derivatives market. They're leveraged in these terrible buyout schemes. And when the dominoes collapse, it will all go. They're already losing money on the pensions. And again, arrogantly, the head of the Texas Teachers Retirement System officially in attendance at Bilderberg this year.
My God.
He meets with Henry Kravis of KKR and the other big pension
It was the
fund.
Texas utilities people 4 years ago in Istanbul, and then they started shutting down the power plants if you weren't an insider, and literally doubling rates since then. I mean, these are just...
Henry Kravis is one of those angels of death. He was part of the largest utilities buyout of all time in Texas, TXU, and there was... admitted insider trading,
they're consolidating the economy to wreck it, folks. That's the thing. They say that's their plan.
Citigroup and Goldman Sachs and others admittedly were insider trading on that buyout deal. That's how they roll. Meanwhile, they're all behind the toll roads. That scheme hasn't died. Mitch Daniels, who now may be the vice president, is part of that scheme as well, the NAFTA superhighway.
Yeah, I want you to break down Mitch Daniels. Mike Adams is riding shotgun with us. This is the governor of Indiana. Let's just look into a window of Bilderberg into just Mitch Daniels, who they want. They don't want Rand Paul. We've got that from sources that they don't like his father. They don't trust Rand Paul, obviously, because he's not a globalist, but he's a little more political. They do not like Rand Paul. They like Mitch Daniels. Rubio went to the CFR and promised world government as well at the same time. But go over the data sheet you wrote up last night from all public sources. Aaron's going to do an article later today on this. Well, go over this monster.
Well, in short, Mitch Daniels ties into the George H.W. Bush power structure, but even more than that,
he's a Quayle frontman.
Dan Quayle. The Quayle family basically owns Indiana. Each state has its own little mini cartels, and Mitch Daniels worked with Eli Lilly. He was head of the corporation that the Quayle family owns a controlling interest. You wonder why they sold us on all these gaffes about how stupid Dan Quayle was, how he couldn't spell potato, or how he thought a $4 job at Burger King was a sign of economic progress. That's all to keep you from looking at the admitted ties he has.
Yeah, just like how the Queen's cute. That's a standard psych warfare operation. These are genius level, vicious killer psychopaths. Okay, I mean, again, they got the aspartame approved, they got the Prozac approved, and then he was the front man to cover up all the mass deaths and suicides. Keep breaking him down.
And of course, Eli Lilly is the top producer of thimerosal that they put in vaccines, and under the George W. Bush administration, they tried to sneak in total dismissal of all thimerosal-based vaccine lawsuits under the Homeland Security Bill in 2002. But that's to protect us from 9/11, Alex. But Mitch Daniels is a lifelong lobbyist through the Reagan administration, through the Bush administration for Eli Lilly. He headed the company in the late 80s, early 90s. Before that, he was president and CEO of the Hudson Institute.
You're on camera.
Who is the Hudson Institute? Well, they're basically the Rand Corporation. It was founded just like the Rand Corporation by Herman Kahn and his buddies. They call it a conservative think tank. I don't see what the scientific, military, industrial think tank business has anything to do with the idea of conservatism.
This is a scientific takeover of the economy, and that's why they get even more globalism under Republicans. Anybody that thinks Mitt Romney's going to save them has a hole in their head. And again, I'm not even attacking Mitt Romney himself or Obama. They are non-consequential. There will be no difference but in rhetoric, folks. This is a scientific blueprint takeover in their own words. Tell them about how he was the head of the highest subgroup that directs Rand.
Yeah, that is the Hudson Institute. Today, it's headed by Henry Kravis's wife, Marie-Josée Kravis. They meet annually at Bilderberg, but it used to be Mitch Daniels. They're absolutely part of the top power structure. They're a lot more secretive than these other groups, and they really steer the way this whole system is going. And you can see how it interlocks with Eli Lilly. Immediately after leaving the CIA, George Herbert Walker Bush went to the Eli Lilly Corporation on the board of directors, put there by the Quayle family.
And there's toll roads run through it all. I mean, it's just insane. Yeah. And it's every one of these guys. Once you start looking at them, they're connected to all the other groups. And what's the number one thing? It's pushing poison on the public, fluoride in the water, GMO, McDonald's. It's all been a plan.
I'm suspicious of Scientology as well, but that whole demonization of Scientology came about from Quayle and Bush and Mitch Daniels in the early 90s when they almost stopped Prozac, killed its market share, and were about to have it removed. Instead, they released hit piece after hit piece in all the major papers to make them look crazy. Maybe they are. That's up to you to decide. But they didn't like them attacking Eli Lilly's Prozac. Mitch Daniels in particular.
At bare minimum, the Scientologists are a competitor group with the globalists. They want to. That's the argument that they want to be them.
Well, I'm not even getting into Scientology, but they were hurting the Prozac
certainly
shares.
They know what's going on.
And Mitch Daniels was a specialist at defending the role of Prozac in the public's mind, and it drove market shares right back up, spiked up there as they continued to put thimerosal in the vaccines. It tried to get themselves immunity on it. Mitch Daniels is an angel of death, just like many of the others.
That's a good headline.
But he was part of the Indiana toll roads again. Sentra and Macri with their thumbprints all over it.
And they take over. Now they're going to get Mopac, a paid-for road, alter the lane that you get and turn it into a toll road, even though that's illegal. Bush signed an executive order saying they could. How's an executive order overthrow law?